am and I'm a student at the Master's Program of Education at Stanford University. I am here to introduce you to your session.
Pessoal, vamos sentar, por favor, vamos começar a próxima sessão. Please take your seat, please.
Once again, thank you all so much for joining us. We are honored to have you here. I am Ana Paula Pereira. I'm a master's student at the Stanford Graduate School of Education, and I'm here to introduce you to our session, Welcome to 21st Century Education. This panel will discuss how education has evolved in the 21st century, and what are the new ideas and solutions that are bringing us towards a meaningful education system and structure. Drawing from success cases both in the UK and in developing countries, to address how we can best leverage technology to improve education and teaching, not only in Brazil, but everywhere in the world. For this discussion, we will have Lord Jim Knight, moderated by Iona Szkurnik. Lord Jim Knight is now the Chief Education and External Officer at TES Global, the news, training, jobs, and resource sharing service for teachers. He previously founded TES Institute, a teacher training business that is now the 5th largest qualifier of teachers in the UK. He is also a visiting professor at the UCL Knowledge Lab and a member of the House of Lords. Jim served as an MP from 2001 to 2009, during which time he was a Minister for Rural Affairs, Schools and then Employment, spending his final year as a Cabinet Minister. Jim is a founder of X-Rapid, the first company to sell disease diagnosis commercially via an iPhone app. He's currently starting the X-Rapid Foundation, offering free malaria diagnosis worldwide. Iona, our board member at the Brazil Silicon Valley Conference, is an alum from and a board member at the Stanford Graduate School of Education. An entrepreneur specialized in innovation and technology in education, Iona focuses on scalable and high-impact solutions at Silicon Valley-based startups. Iona is a Lehman Fellow, a recipient of the National Council for Education Award for Entrepreneurship in Education Technology, as the co-founder of a computational thinking platform, narrowing the gap between non-English speakers and coding worldwide. Iona strongly believes in improving and impacting Brazil by pushing the boundaries of innovation. Please join me in welcoming Lord Jim Knight and Iona Szkurnik.
Hello everybody. It's an incredible honor to be here with all of you, and thank you, Jim, for believing in our movement to improve Brazil and to fly from the UK to be here with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Since I met you and I heard your passion for changing the world and your plans for the future, I thought you would be a great person to be here today with us. And I hope everybody agrees with me at the end of this conversation. We have a very diverse group of people here with us today. Top executives from the private sector in banking, infrastructure, health, consumer goods, many entrepreneurs, many students. And I believe there is at least 3 things that unite us all despite of our diverse backgrounds. We are unsettled with our country. We are believers and we are passionate to make a change. So I believe that education is central to the transformation we want to see in Brazil. And this is what we're going to talk about here. I'm going to bring 4 data points of Brazil's current situation in education so we can give a little bit of a background and context. We have over 48 million students in basic education. 1/4 don't finish middle school. That's a dropout rate of 25%. Among those who finish basic education, only 35% perform grade level knowledge in Portuguese and 18% in math. Let me say this again. Over 80% of kids by the age of 16 don't have basic math skills. Among the kids of between 8 and 9 years old, 55% can't read. Half of the population of kids can't read when they're supposed to be reading. But with all that, it means that we have a great potential to grow. It means that we can improve a lot. And I think that technology can take us a long way if we make it the right use of it. We're going to talk about this today. So, Jim, you are also a believer and a change maker. But I know you had a past before you shift to education. And I believe that everything started with a phone call.
Yeah, the phone call.
The phone call.
So that's it. So I'm sitting in a room upstairs in Weymouth Library. Weymouth's a town on the south coast of England, and I'm sat next to Rachel, my caseworker, and we're on it's sort of dodgy 80s architecture with dodgy 80s furniture, and opposite me is a constituent. And I've got my phone on the table, and the phone starts ringing. It's a number withheld, and I'm expecting a call. So I say to my constituent, "I'm really sorry, it's very rude, but do you mind if I just take the call?" And he says, "Sure." So I pick up the phone, and the voice at the other end said, "This is the Downing Street switchboard. I have the Prime Minister for you. Will you take the call?" Yeah. So the voice comes on the other end. Hi, Jim. This is Tony. You're doing a great job as
Tony Blair.
Yeah, as Rural Affairs Minister. But I'm going to have to leave you. I want you to be Schools Minister, working with Andrew Adonis. I go, "Oh, okay. Great, thanks." End of the call. The constituent looks at me and he says, "Good news?" I say, "Yeah. Yeah, it looks like I'm now the Schools Minister." He says, "Well, congratulations. So you must be a teacher." And I go, "No. No, I'm not a teacher." He goes, "Oh, okay. But you're an expert in education." "Well, I'm a parent, and I did go to school." But that was the beginnings of my love affair with education, and if it's not too much of a cliche, my sense that education is an investment, it's not a cost. And that's a constant battle within government, to think of it on that basis.
Okay, but you had a choice after your term. What made you stick with education?
I think it is that sense of wasted talent. I mean, you talked with just those 4 facts about Brazil and 48 million funneling down to 80% not getting basic maths at 16. That waste of talent, I fundamentally believe that everyone has a talent and our job is to try and bring it out. And yet so many young people in my country are currently, we have the shocking statistic, according to our National Health Service, of 1 in 4 of our girls aged 16 to 19 who are either self-harming or attempting suicide. So we have a mental health crisis in our country. We have rising knife crime in our country. That waste of potential, because we're not getting childhood right, is what makes me want to wake up and do education every day.
Well, then I was thinking, how can we make a good use of our time? And welcome to the 21st century education is such a broad and overwhelming theme. I thought about a few things that we'll talk about today, such as what have you seen from your time in the parliament from till today that you shift from public policy to the private sector? What have you changed in the sense of evolution in education and innovation and things that you are now more able to be with your hands on?
The short answer is not enough in my country, and indeed to a great extent when I look at the US. And I think we are becoming outliers as some other countries start to shift. And the reason why they're shifting is the other thing that's fundamentally changed, which is the more intelligent answer, I guess, I hope, which is around the context around education that is shifting pretty fast. So after I was schools minister, I was employment minister for a year. So I spent that time looking in much more detail at the way the labour market works. And since then, I'm more in touch with the employer community as well as the education community, and I've done some work around the future of work on a commission for my party in the UK. And there is that obvious change that's going on in the labour market around what employers value, around the acute shortage of talent, with employers spending a small fortune as a percentage of salary to headhunters to recruit the talent that it can't source very easily, and then really struggling to retain that talent, and that being a major drain on business, and why it's such lunacy to do things like Brexit or put up barriers to people when we need people to be able to move around so business can flourish. So and what employers in turn are valuing is changing. So I see them questioning qualifications as a proxy for skill and wanting to see just skill and competence and mindset. And so the sense that, well, I'll just hire the best graduates from the best graduate schools is losing currency in employer communities, because they understand you need a diverse workforce to have the creative problem-solving teams that you need to be a successful business. And that is starting to undermine universities. So universities in themselves are starting to go, well, there are vested interests who aren't adapting very fast, but there are some new kids on the block who are saying, well, we can turn around people and help them achieve those attributes and mindsets that employers value much more quickly and with far less debt than universities. And so if employers and universities are shifting as a context, then education will start to shift, because in the end they are the end destination point for education. And that's why in the end I believe my country is an outlier, because it's not responding to that challenge.
So we are taking questions through the app, and I'm seeing one here that it fits exactly to what we are talking, so allow me to blend with technology, so please shoot your questions. It's from Otávio Mille. He's asking, how can universities, especially in Brazil, but I guess this is a worldwide question, adapt their curriculum to the reality of the new economy, where content needs to be updated faster than in the past?
Universities urgently need to change their model. I find it really hard to advise an 18, 19-year-old who, happily, longevity means they're going to live longer, they're therefore going to work longer, so they've got loads of time, they're going to change careers multiple times. Why would you start your working life with a huge amount of debt, having done a 3 or 4 year university experience? Why wouldn't you want to spread that out? So again, one challenge for a university is, why aren't you looking at a recurring revenue business model of a subscription to the university rather than an upfront fee with debt? So as a business model, think about things. But also think, you talked about content and the need to change content faster than it's possible because of, the need for academic evidence and all those things that slow things down. I think we have a university system that is great at reproducing itself. So it's a fantastic funnel and filter to create a pipeline of academics, but it's serving the labour market pretty poorly. Because in the end, what the labour market wants is a mindset less than a set of knowledge and content. I was talking to a friend the other day who's setting up a sort of future insights consultancy with a few friends and starting to get some business, but it's coupling their human intelligence and their experience and understanding with artificial intelligence. And he's saying, well, actually, what us as humans are contributing is the ability to ask the machine the right question. And that's a core intelligence for the future, is the ability to ask the right question. And yet we have a whole education system that's around answering the question, not asking it. And that shift in mindset is where we would need universities to take us at higher levels of intelligence, and to do so on the basis of shorter courses that you can turn around much faster, and a different relationship with university, so that you keep going back to it through your working life as a place to refresh and reflect, not a place to just bank some qualifications that become worthless in the labour market.
That leads me to my next thought. So thinking about the future, which actually is already the present, last month when I went to China, I had the opportunity to visit all kinds of public schools and private schools, universities, and speak with members of the party that thinks about what the country needs and education. And I heard in every visit them saying that they are going to make the leap from made in China to created in China. And they are going to do this by embedding innovation in the curriculum. And I asked them, but how are you going to ensure that this is going to be taught? They are deploying massive training for every teacher to teach innovation. But what is it to teach innovation? And they said the design thinking and prototyping and trying and again to think about new creative ideas to tackle problems, which is why they are now booming the AI. So I was thinking, how do you see the future and the global landscape of where education is heading?
So, China is really interesting in some jurisdictions. China, like Brazil, is a pretty vast country. And so you have some jurisdictions, Shanghai does really well, for example, Beijing does well. And it's interesting when they go in for the PISA tests or the international league table comparison, they don't go in as China. They go in as city jurisdictions because they can do really well as cities. But if you did the whole country, it would be a bit of a nightmare. But Singapore, a city-state, there are examples of places in that part of the world unencumbered by the accountability of the Daily Mail and other forms of mass media, unencumbered by democracy, if you like, that are able to plan more strategically and implement more quickly. And they are understanding the importance of those creative problem-solving skills and some of that mindset shift, which is really challenging, I think, for them culturally in the Confucian cultures. But it's interesting to see how they are understanding the importance of it and trying to develop that. You look at Finland in Europe, a very different country to mine, but they are trying to anticipate 100 years ahead. Portugal, doing some great investment and some great thinking. And some of the provinces in Canada too. So I can look around the world and see those who are saying, well, actually, our paradigm isn't working for us very well. Our paradigm of high-stakes testing and accountability and just putting hurdles up in front of people is moving them away from being able to fail and fail well, because in the end it is that which creates great product. And great product drives success in business, and education does have a fundamental role to play in feeding the talent in the business. And so my sense is we need to dial down the high-stakes accountability testing and dial up more of the collaborative intelligence that we want to see from people by getting them to work together and to try and solve problems and ask questions. And that's a very different educational experience.
So it bothers me a little bit to think about education in a very broad sense and talk about it as if it was not done inside of the classroom. Basic education is done by teachers in the ground floor in classrooms. They deal with tremendous challenges that some of you know, but believe me, it's amazing challenges. So I'm thinking about the what and the how. The what, Brazil has done a great job by approving the national curriculum, the Base Nacional Comum Curricular, which gives a clear north of what teachers should learn. And the how, it's by empowering teachers on a continuous professional development, meaning giving them support nets, peer-to-peer collaboration, planning time, things that we see in Finland on a regular basis. But also we see a value of education in countries like Singapore by giving teachers awards and prizes and making them feel special that we do in other industries, and why not in education yet in Brazil. So among all those things, what do you see as a priority to really empower teachers?
Yeah, my day job is all about teachers and empowering them, and that is, it's an idea I borrowed from Andrew Sliker, who's the head of education at the OECD, the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development. And Andreas talks about teacher professionalism as being a triangulation around skills and knowledge, around peer-to-peer and trust. And that stuck with me, that sense that, we focus a lot on the professional development of teachers, which is largely a skills and knowledge play, and it's largely a sort of top-down knowledge deficit approach where we just go, well, you haven't got enough knowledge, we'll pass it on to you. There isn't enough designing in the peer-to-peer learning that we know from any other profession. Doctors, architects, surgeons, whatever, lawyers, they need to learn from each other. And we need to embed that much more in the way that the teaching profession operates, and then trust them. And I think a national curriculum is really important as putting a benchmark under things, but there then comes a point when you've lifted the profession high enough where you start to dial that down again, because you can trust them. Different countries are in a different place. But certainly in my country, we're not doing a good enough job of trusting professionals. But then the other thing I would say, you said something at the beginning of that, Iona, which was about basic education and teachers. Most education happens at home. And it's really important that we think about how we engage parents. So many really important education reforms have fallen down because we've not done that. Because we've not brought parents along on the journey. Kids are spending most of their time at home. In some places, they go to school to have a rest from learning. The learning they do is at home, it's on their devices, it's It's using books, it's using whatever is available. We are born learners. That's what we naturally do. We do it through the serve and return of an exchange with the adults that are around us. And if we don't engage parents around some of that, the detail of learning, but also the vision of where we're going, then it kind of all fades away. And everything that we try and do with teachers is then just trying to battle upstream.
Okay, but thinking about the reality of parents and kids at home, they use technology absolutely all the time. And this is not necessarily a reality with teachers. So in the effort of doing professional development and investing in talent development, I believe if we don't embed technology, teachers likely won't be able to deploy solutions effectively in the classroom with technology. And TESS has now, I updated, 11 million users, registered users, downloading over 1 million classroom resources a day worldwide. And I know you now have been doing a great effort in professional development, embedding technology. How do you think that we can effectively ensure that teachers are going to make the right use of technology in the classroom?
Yeah, I think that's an important next stage in most places. You know, children using technology is not something where I'm one of those people who just think it's the answer to everything. All of us as parents, as children, as teachers, we're all kind of making this up as we go along because the technology is new, we don't really know what the rules are. And you know, everything in moderation, and there is some overdosing on technology, and you know, in my house, we don't allow the technology in the bedroom because that's a place where you should have it turned off and where you need to have a rest from the screen and be able to get a good night's sleep. And I worry about the effect on children of the lack of sleep and its relationship with technology and bullying and so on. But fundamentally, technology is now integrated in the way we are. You know, if I leave home without a pen, it doesn't really matter. If I leave home without my phone, it's a disaster. I will go whole days when I don't pick up a pen, whereas that used to be the integrated tool with the way we all were and the way we operated. And yet we don't reflect that in school. We don't reflect that core integration about the way we all now live our lives using our phones in the way that we teach. And yet we should be teaching children how to use that technology responsibly, how to use it constructively and positively for learning and to create value, and teach them the dangers of using it badly. And then for teachers, the power of then having this computer in everyone's hand to be able to use that to explore the world is extraordinary. And yet, most teachers are scared of it. Most teachers haven't been trained in any kind of pedagogy as to how to use that. And that is a huge failing in our teacher training. It's a huge failing in the cultures around teaching. And we have to urgently address that in our teacher training colleges, in the ministries, in the schools, in the unions, and understand there aren't enough teachers in the world. If we're going to meet the Sustainable Development Goal 4 on quality education, UNESCO tells us we need 64 million more teachers in the world. That ain't going to happen. So we need those that we've got to have a greater reach. And technology is undoubtedly a big part of how we're going to get that reach, if we're up for changing the way teachers work.
So we have many questions. I'm going to blend in one that all of them are good, but one is specifically about the panel we just had. So it's anonymous. Considering the learning by doing mentioned by Scott Cook, how do you envision using technologies to support experimentation?
You don't have to have technology embedded in that if you don't want to, but technology is then a great way of recording what you're doing and of collaborating and bringing in experts that aren't in the room because they're kind of there available at the drop of a hat. You know, how do any of us, if we're doing a job around the house, if I'm cooking, how do I get the recipe? How do I work out how to fix the washing machine? Well, I go online and look at the YouTube video or find the manual or whatever. So that's available to us as we're experimenting to think about things and to work out who's also trying to experiment before. And then there are things that we can do, obviously, with technology. You know, I'm an advisor to an organisation called Apps for Good in the UK, and that's a not-for-profit that works with children in schools, challenging them in teams to devise a smartphone application that will solve a social problem that they can see in their world. And so they'll wireframe it, but they'll also budget it, and they'll work out how to market it, and they'll put the whole enterprise together. And that's experimentation. Not everyone succeeds, but they learn as they're going. They're working in teams. It's the kind of learning that we're looking for.
Okay, so now for our last question. We just had the news that Bolsonaro fired our Minister of Education today. I was expecting this, so I saved for last. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this conversation. So, if you had a phone call, that's the question today. And just to give you a little bit of data, you would have 6% of our GDP for your budget, which is 22 billion pounds, around $30 billion. And you have a blank page. Considering that, as we say, we have many Brazils inside Brazil. And you've been to Brazil, he has been to Brazil many times, including Amazonas and the countryside. So considering the reality, although you have a blank page.
Well, I'm not expecting a phone call again. That's only happened to me once. So that's a reassurance, I'm sure. But in the end, in that
you would need to learn Portuguese.
Yeah, I'm rubbish at language, I apologise. You have to go back to first principles, and you talked a bit earlier actually about investing in the teaching workforce. So first and foremost, a successful school system is about teachers, and that involves working out how to raise the status of the profession, to get people from all across the country, from all the different circumstances and from communities to want to be teachers and to want to work to help raise children, to be successful and to stop that acute funnel that you have and to turn it into a pipeline. Yeah, that's the modern challenge for us, is to build cradle-to-grave education systems that are an open pipeline of talent to service the economy and to allow young people to lead fulfilling lives and making a meaningful contribution. And so, as well as then investing in teachers and their working environment and in the support that we provide to teachers, there's a conversation to be had with teachers too, which is about change and changing their pedagogy and the way they work, and rewarding them for going to the most difficult places to teach, the places that really need their professional input, changing their way of operating so that they're more welcoming to others, experts coming in and helping them in the classroom. But then there is a system design issue, which is so that we're no longer filtering people out using tests and just discarding people because they failed the tests. And then ending up with an elite going to university who are the ones that we really value. And saying, no, we need to broaden that right out and have a system that values the talents that everyone has got, that values their creativity, that values their engineering skill, that values their technical skill, that values their academic skill, that values their humanity, most fundamentally. And we need to balance that all right out, and that will open up the funnel into a pipeline. And then Brazil can realise its potential because it's realising the potential of its people.
I hope you come share more in Brazil about that. Thank you very much for your time.